Spokane Woodcraft. We're going to do a demonstration on router inlay today, specifically using this little guy here. It's a router inlay kit that allows you to cut not only the piece you're going to inlay, but to create the hole for it as well, so you get a really nice fit. So we're going to use, well, you'll need to use what I call a negative template. In my opinion, this would be a negative template. A positive template would be if I, say, had this spade in my hand. So what you need to do this system is a negative template. One kind of factor about the template is that you can't have any inside corners tighter than a 3/8 inch radius. The reason being, the bushing itself is 3/8 inch, and it can't get into any inside corners any tighter than that. So here's an example of one that I've done before. This is actually, so I've got a template that I've created from one of our woodcraft templates that we sell for this heart. I'm going to inlay it into this piece of wood here. This is actually a lid to a box. It's another class that we have, dovetail boxes. And I'm going to inlay the heart out of this nice piece of curly maple. So a little bit more about the inlay kit itself. What really makes this thing work is that it is a bushing, and hopefully everybody knows what I mean when I say bushing for your router. It's essentially a way to install a collar around the bit when you're using your router that allows you to be guided by some kind of a template. What the inlay kit does is it takes that basic idea and essentially adds this extra bushing or collar to it. And then you add that on at the appropriate time. What this is going to do is it's going to shift you away from the edge of your template by the thickness of the bit. So one, you're going to create the piece that you're going to inlay. You'll do that with the bushing off. And if you think about it, say you have a circle here that's your template, and you've got the extra collar off, your bit will be closer to the edge of this template. If you put that extra collar on, it's then going to push you inside the thickness of the bit. So if you think about it, when you have the bushing off, you're cutting the larger of the two. You're on the outside edge of the piece you're going to inlay. And when you put the bushing on, you're now jumping exactly to the inside of that edge to create the hole. That doesn't sink through yet. Hopefully it will here in a minute when we do it. So it's obviously very important that your bit, when everything is installed, that your bit comes through dead center on this bushing. That it's not, that the bit is too far to one side or the other. It has to be dead center. Otherwise, as you go around, you'll be tight here, loose here. It won't line up, it won't fill in. Moving forward, we are going to have the extra collar off. We're going to create the piece. If we put the collar on, we create the hole for the piece. Okay. Any idea which one we should probably do first? It's better if you make the hole first, because you can always make a different piece to fit the hole. Chances are the hole is going in something you've already finished. So if you're going to mess something up, mess up the piece, not the hole. You can always make another piece. And that goes, for doing your strip inlays or any inlays really. Cut the hole first. You can always make another piece. What we're going to do is use what is the best friend of somebody doing inlays like this, and that's this double stick tape. Most people think that you'd probably cover the whole bottom of this with double stick tape. If you did, you're likely to never get it back up. This stuff is really strong. It's sold over in the turning section as turner's tape. It's actually strong enough to hold a platter or a bowl onto a sacrificial chuck with no other attachment. So I'm just putting a couple pieces. I've got a piece of sacrificial piece of plywood down here, and I'm just going to stick this to it. That'll hold that down. So I'm just going to line it back up with my little predetermined spot here. Since I'm cutting the hole, I'm going to put the bushing on. And then at this point, what I need to do is to set the depth of the bit. I want to set the bit, in this instance, when I'm cutting the hole, I want the hole to be a little bit less than the thickness of the piece I'm going to inlay. In other words, I want the inlay to sit proud of the piece I'm inlaying it into. I want to sand or scrape or plane the inlaid piece to be flush with its substrate, not the other way around. Okay? So I'll, at this point, set this up to where the bit is sticking out just a little bit less than the thickness of my inlay piece. So we'll take the router, basically establish 0 by setting it on the template and just letting the bit touch the wood. And then I'll lock that position in. So now I can repeat that position all day long. Then what I need to do is take my inlay piece and I can set it between the depth stop and my plunger stop. So now I have this set up to where if I continue to plunge now, it'll cut this full depth. We can go ahead and cut this hole out. This is the other reason I like to do this one first, is that if I make a mistake on this particular one, it's okay, because I'm going to take everything out of the inside of this template right now. When I cut the piece out of this, I have to stay to that outside edge. If I wobble in just a little bit, I just ruin that piece. So this kind of almost sets up a little practice first, so I can cut. If I move in on this one, it doesn't matter. I need to clear it all out anyway. So it just kind of helps get you used to using it. Good. Good deal. And on the inlay piece, you know, the thinner wood, I always like to put a small piece of tape where the piece is. In other words, not only hold this whole thing down, but a small piece to hold our inlay piece down. Because when we finally cut it free, we don't want it in there banging around and getting messed up. So always put one little piece of tape on there. See, it's right there, so I'm going to put just a little piece. In case anybody's wondering, I generally do not reuse this tape. It's just too risky. You know, it doesn't take much dirt to get in there, and sawdust, finger grease, and so on. So you could probably get away with it for 2 or 3 applications, but I just think it's just not worth it. You know, taking the risk. take bushing off. So now I want to be closer to the outside of my template. I'm going to make a piece. Good there. And I want to make sure that I go all the way through to cut the piece off. So now I'll just set my depth, making sure that it will go all the way through not only my template but the piece. Hopefully not too much past that. Like I said before, now it's really critical that I stay to the outside of that template. If I go in, that's going to mess up the actual inlay piece. So just kind of take it slow. Sometimes I found that on inside corners, like on this heart, you know, on the point of the heart, when you get there, it kind of helps to kind of rotate the router as well instead of trying to keep it square as it goes around there. To the wise, when you test fit this, don't put it in there and push it in. You may not get it out. Just enough. Basically, without pushing it in, there you have it. So now all we have to do is put some glue behind it, shove it all the way in, and you're good to go. Sand it down or scrape it. Sanding, sometimes when you have two different densities of wood, like this hard maple and this fairly soft mahogany, if you're sanding with like a random orbit sander with a soft pad, it'll dig down into the wood that's softer and actually make it a little lower than the harder wood. So, you know, maybe sand it to get it real close and then come back over it with a scraper is your best shot. Because a scraper is going to keep everything exactly the same level as far as height is concerned. And it keeps the wood nice and bright too. Any questions? Really? It was that good?